Dragapult Fusion Strike is here, and Old Hot Chalk has got you 40 of the best Fusion Strike deck list for you to go and try out. We've got new archetypes, we've even got old archetypes, and we've got some rogue and budget ones in there for you too. Sound good? Let's get involved. Right then, so first up we have a new archetype, baby. We have Boltund Vmax. Boltund Vmax has the attack Lightning Storm, which is 30 plus 30 for each lightning energy attached to all your Pokemon. If that sounds familiar to you, you would be correct, because Boltund V has the same attack, but it does 10 plus 30, so you get an extra 20 damage, which is pretty cool. Essentially, with this deck, you want to try and get to the point where you have, 8 to 10 energy attached, so you are just taking one shots left, right, and center. You also have 3 for 230 attack there as well, which is pretty good in the early game. So we're playing this, with a fluffy engine. We also have a Dragapult V to item lock our opponents. So we can slow down the early game to the point where we can just start swinging with 8 to 10 energy attached. We are laughing. So that's Boltund Vmax. Coming up next, we have the big, scary Mike Tyson himself, Crabominable V. For 2 water, 1 colorless energy, you have Fist of the Destroyer, which is 90 plus 60 for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So, if you get to the point where your opponent's active has between 3 and 6 damage counters on, you are taking them to the bank. The Oko Bank, that is. You're taking them to Knockout City, baby. So we're playing this with the quick shooting Inteleons, because why wouldn't we? Because we need to, get damage into play and set up, so I see no reason not to play Inteleon. We also play 2 Galarian Zigzagoons, which when you bench them, will put 1 damage counter on your opponent's active. So we play some stuff like Scoop Up Net, and we play Melanie to act as our way of drawing cards, number 1, and get energy attached, number 2. So that's Crabominable V. This is an incredible attack, trust me. So we're taking Crabominable V and we're flipping it now into a mill deck, believe it or not, because Crabominable V's first attack actually is pretty good. For 1 water energy, you can discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. So we are utilizing a whole ton of disruption cards here with the Cinccino engine so we can keep drawing. So we have 3 of the new Sydney card, which lets you look at your opponent's hand and you can discard any combination of 2 special energy, stadiums, or tool cards. Now, still, tool cards, not really too fussed about, but we can get rid of air balloons. Stadiums is quite important because we want to lock in the Galar Mine, more of that in a second, and getting rid of special energy will be insane, so we're not taking damage back. So idea is here, we play a whole ton of disruption cards, 3 final waves, 4 crushing hammer, and 4 Galar Mine, with the idea if we can run our opponent out of all energy and keep gusting up stuff that they don't want in the active, in combination with Galar Mine, they have to burn a lot of resources just to even attack you, and hopefully as a 270 HP basic Pokemon, we shouldn't be getting knocked out too often, and we're just going to try and gust up something our opponent can't move, keep overturning cards out the deck. Hopefully if we hit a switch or an air balloon along the way, we are laughing. So we do play 4 Crushing Hammer, 3 Final Waves, 2 Yell Grunt, 3 Sydneys, oh my lord, and a cheeky Horn, so we can bring back something if they try and get rid of it, you know what I mean? Let's keep it moving. Alright then, next up we got ourselves an old favourite with a sneakily good addition. We have ourselves straight Decidueye. I don't know what Decidueye does by now. It has the Deep Forest Camera ability, which means it cannot be hit by V Pokemon. So the idea is here, if we can get ourselves a nice fast Decidueye out, and then another Decidueye out, our attack, which does 90 and then 20 to 2 of our opponent's bench Pokemon, should be enough to seal up the game. Now, because our opponents might be playing some non-V Pokemon, but chances are 2 Decidueye will be able to get through them, and then the 3rd Decidueye should be able to seal it up. So the new addition here is a new Cramoratic card, and what that is, Cramoratic card I should say, it's an item. Yeah, when you play you have to discard a card from your hand. That's a bit sad, but then you flip a coin. If heads, you can search your deck for any card and put it in your hand. So it's a bit like Order Pad, except the Order Pad can only grab items, whereas this can find you anything. So supporters, energy, even Pokemon, this can find you anything. This could be a real big consistency boost, so let me know what you think about this list and how it works for you. Right, next up we have ourselves Dragapult, a new Fusion Strike deck, baby. What this Dragapult does is a stage 2 Pokemon, the Fusion Assault attack, which does 30 for each Fusion Pokemon you have in play. So if you have 6 Fusion Pokemon in play, you're topping out 180 for 1 attachment on a non-V Pokemon. That sounds pretty good to me. Anytime you can 2-shot a 3 prizer with a 1 prizer, that is advantageous for yourself. So you're probably thinking, this is a stage 2 deck though, but how are we, what's all this about? They tend not to be very good. Well, when you have big beefy Genesect V drawing your cards, anything is playable, trust me. What Genesect does, you can draw up to the amount of fusion Pokemon you have in place. If you have 6 fusion strike Pokemon in play, you essentially have a full value Karina's Determination, whatever that card's called. You know what I mean? The Karina's card. But this stacks, so if you have 2 or 3 Genesects in play, you can draw up to you have 6 Quick Ball or Rare Candy, either Incense, then use another one to draw another 2 or 3. Bonkers. And with this deck, you also have the Power Tablets, which let you do an extra 30 this turn. So if you play 2 Power Tablets, you're topping out at 240 damage for 1 attachment on a non-V Pokemon. That's pretty crazy. Right, so next up we got ourselves another Dragapult list, but this one's a little bit sneaky because we got ourselves a 2-2 of the Gorebyss line. And what this Gorebyss does, it essentially says your opponent's Rapid Strike Pokemon have no abilities. That can be kind of fun. Turn off stuff like Persimmon. It also turns off Rapid Strike Inteleon. Doesn't turn off the Drizzy, unfortunately, because the Drizzile is not a Rapid Strike Pokemon. But this is pretty cool. You could also run in here if you wanted one of the Huntail, which makes your opponent's single strike Pokemon's attacks cost 1 colorless less. Now that was in here, but I feel as if that could be a little bit win more, so I took it out. But let me know what you think, because Gorebyss is pretty disgusting. Next up, we got ourselves Big Daddy Dragapult. We got ourselves Dragapult Vmax Path to the Peak. I'm not going to talk long about this one because this list really hasn't changed much from Fusion Strike. We're just going to be using Max Platinum here, 2 for 130, peppering the active, and then peppering the bench with 5 damage counters, I should say. In combination with Quick Shooting, Inteleon, and Zigzagoons and Nets, we can start placing damage in a whole bunch of funny ways and taking prizes really well. Dragapult Vmax Path to the Peak is scary. Okay, next up we have Duraladon. This is a deck I've seen a little bit of hype for, and I can see why there's hype for it, but I can also see it could be a little bit misplaced. Duraladon VMAX has that Skyscraper ability, which basically says if your opponent has any special energy, then they ain't doing damage to him. He's hard body, baby. So if they have Rapid Strike energy, the attacks just bounce off. If they have a single strike energy, the attacks just bounce off. That is what we're going with here with this deck. Now, a lot of people are hyping this up because Gengar VMAX is going to be the new face of single strike decks, and a lot of those lists are cutting Urshifu VMAX. So that means they have no wall breaking ability. And Gengar VMAX does need a lot of special energy to be doing big damage. So that's number one. A lot of people are thinking, oh, Mew VMAX plays a whole ton of special energy, right? They play like Fusion Energy, Capture Energy, Horror Energy. But I'm here to tell you the Mew matchup might not be as great as you think because they have that wall breaking attack which is 2 for 130, and with Power Tablets that actually can start threatening 2 shots on the occasion. At the very worst, it is a 3 shot. But you are asking your opponent to do a whole lot of stuff there, so maybe there is some hype for Duraladon. Let me explain to you how the deck works. So for one fighting 2 colorless, for one fighting 2 metal energy, I should say, you do 220 damage, and it actually wall breaks as well, goes for all effects your opponent's Pokemon. So this can slam a Decidueye if needed. So, we're playing this Jolteon with a Bronzong, which lets you move around metal energies. And the idea is here, with Crystal Cave, Aurora energies, and the Bronzong, we can abuse our Cheryls that we play at 2 count to make sure this Duraladon VMAX never gets KO. We also play 2 Zacian, because Zacian is pretty good, you know, doing a 3 for 230 slap on a 2 prizer and letting you see cards in the early game. In combination with the Zamazenta V, which is immune to V max attacks. This could be a pretty fun wall deck, and I guarantee you now, you are going to win some games just having a combination of annoying abilities, right? So you got Skyscraper, Dauntless Shield, and Zacian in the early game doing this thing, along with Shells. Could be kind of fun. Alright, next up we have ourselves Eternatus Vmax, a deck that I have in high rarity myself, and I'm trying my hardest to make it work. Eternatus actually gets a real big buff from Fusion Strike with Adventure Discovery. Everyone's singing with me, Dora the Explorer's coming on through, and what Dora the Explorer does is lets you search your deck for 3 V cards and put them in your hand. This is a crazy buff for Eternatus. This means you don't have to have an explosive turn 1 realistically, because then you can just grab some Adventure Discoveries, get yourself some Umbreons, get yourself a Moltres, get yourself a Crobat, and fill that hand, baby. We are playing a thick line of Umbreon, a 4-3 line, and what that Umbreon does is going to let you gust up your opponent's bench Pokemon when you evolve, as well as providing fuel for the Tower of Darkness stage. And that we have to play in a high count so we can counter any cheeky buffs to the peaks. We also have 2 of the Moltres like Dire Flame Rings ability, letting you get 1 Dark from the discard pile, sling it up to itself, and then you can energy switch it off to where you want. Eternatus is pretty cool. I haven't even told you what the VMAX does yet. Eternatus Vmax is our main attacker, letting you have 8 Darkness Pokemon in play, and then that Drain attack, which for 2 energy can max out at 270, so it does 30 for each Dark type. So the idea is here we're going to fill our bench of Umbreons, Moltreses, and we can play a full 4 Crobats to be super consistent with our Adventure Discovery. We are going to be filling that bench fast and hitting for big, hard damage. That's Eternatus Vmax. Right, then next up, I have one of the most aggressive mill decks I've ever seen in my entire life. Have ourselves the new Feraligatr. This Feraligatr has the toxicity from Rebel Clash's ability, attack I should say, on an ability. So what this ability does, when you evolve, you can flip a coin. If heads, discard the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. That's pretty nuts. If tails, though, you got to discard the top 5 of your own. So if you're feeling lucky, I've got the best deck for you, because this is max. What you can do in combination with our 4 Pokemon breeders, what we're going to try and do is get to the point where we've got 2 or 3 Croconaws all ready to go, right? And then what we can do is evolve a Feraligatr, right? Hopefully flip heads. There goes 5 cards. Scoop up net. Evolve the next one. Put the Totodile down. And if you flip all 3 heads, evolving up the Feraligatrs, you've now discarded the top 15 cards of your opponent's deck. That's pretty gnarly. We do play 4 ordinary Rostos. If we do discard our own, we can try and, you know, keep the game going. And then as our attacker, we play 4 of the Shuckle with that Deck Distiller attack, which is flip a coin until you get tails. For each head, discard the top card of your opponent's deck. So we are really hitting the opponent's deck here quite hard. We have Glimmer Tangle and Curse Shovel as well to help us out. So this is a mad deck. Please give it a go, because it's really fun if you flip heads. Right, next up we have ourselves the meme VMAX themselves. TPCR, you're doing a nuts. You're doing a madness right now. Greedent VMAX with that big stocks attack for 2 energy, does 30 damage. And if your opponent's basic Pokemon was knocked out from damage from this attack, take an extra 2 prize cards. 2 more prize cards. So the idea is here, hopefully if our opponents are playing Sobble, we're going to take the mickey out of them, because what we're going to do, we are going to use our big stocked attack. We can either attach 2 powerful energies or 1 powerful energy, and then the spongy gloves. The spongy gloves makes your attacks do an extra 30 to your opponent's water types, and then we can just gust up the Sobble and then KO it basically. And once we've KO'd the first one, we have a few tips and tricks here with our Inteleons to where we could just get them back next turn. So what we're going to do, let's pretend we've KO'd the Sobble, we took 3 prize cards, happy days. Next turn, we're going to use our Drizzies or Inteleons to find ourselves Echoing Horn, put that Sobble straight back on the bench. Then we can use a Galarian Zigzagoon to put it onto, so it's got 50 health left. And then we can use a Toy Catcher to ping, bring it into the active, big stock set again, and that's going to be game over basically. Our other attacks is 3, for 300 is 160 and you draw 3. So, you know, in combination with Inteleons, Zigzagoons and big stocks, we're going to try and win the game that way. Hey, I mean, Sobbles are everywhere these days, so it could be pretty fun. Okay, next up we have ourselves another Greedent VMAX deck. This time we are partnered up with Suicune V. The idea is here with this list, Suicune's going to be a bit more of our early game, mid game attacker, okay? Try and take some cheeky prizes, try and take ideally 3 or 4 prizes, and then we can just steal the game with the Greedent VMAX at the end. Now, if you want a big, more in-depth discussion about this deck, make sure you go check out Orange Belt. They've done a real big video. I'll leave that link down below, but this is more of a Greedent VMAX deck, which has Suicune bolted onto it, and you know, should hopefully make you a bit more well-rounded against the rest of the metagame. We all know how good Suicune is. We know taking 3 prizes on the basic is good. Put them together and let's see how it goes, eh? Right, next up we have a super cool archetype here with Hoopa Hydregion. Hoopa is a real cool card, right? What Hoopa does is a dark type Pokemon, does 3 for 3 energy, does 170 damage, okay? That sounds a bit lackluster, but what that does do is two-shot everything in format. But as a sneaky good ability, double type, it is basically a dark type and a psychic type at the same time. So what that means is you are slamming weakness on all the Urshifus, and hitting all the dark weak stuff as well, such as Shadow Rider and Mew VMAX as well, okay? And that's pretty interesting. If you can play the matchup roulette correctly, you have a good matchup across a lot of things. And against everything else, you are too fighter at two shots, and with power tablets, you can start to creep that damage a little bit higher and start one-shotting stuff like Suicunes potentially and Zacians, okay? And the reason why you can play this on its own as a solitary attack is because Hydreigon, that Dark Trance ability, lets you just throw Dark Energies at it, letting you attach as many Dark Energies from your hand as you like during the turn. Now, normally Hydreigon, it's been in format for a while, but it hasn't seen play because it's a stage 2 and it's a bit inconsistent. But in combination with the Genesect engine, where you can keep drawing as many fusion Pokemon you have in play, you can actually see a whole ton of cards without playing a supporter. What that allows us to do is utilize the Peony at a solid 4 count, which means you have to discard your hand, but then you search your deck for 2 trainers. So the idea is, if you have a Dino in play, 1 Genesect and a Hoopa, maybe some other stuff, you can just grab yourself Rare Candy, Evo Incense, and then start drawing cards with Genesect. It seems pretty fun to me. It'd be a real fun archetype to try. Let me know if you try and how it goes. Okay, next up we have ourselves Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX game. I'm not going to talk for too long about this because you all know what it does by now. I don't think gains anything from Fusion Strike. What it does, you have that max lance attack, which for 2 energy, you can do 250 because it does 120 for each energy you discard, but you can only discard 2. So a super efficient attacking, and he's still got Marnie and Path to the Peak nonsense. We also play a sneaky meta champ, which I think Cash Vinder Singh popularized. So basically, with that Yoga Loop, letting you put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If that gets knocked out from that Yoga Loop, though, you get a whole nother turn. That's pretty crazy, because we know Ice Rider Calyrex is really good at just missing KOs, right? So Metacham lets us clean them up, take multiple prizes, and with the 3 Inteleons that we have with a quick shooting ability, we can actually make that Yoga Loop rather scary. And I think this is a perfect list for Ice Rider and Metacham, so make sure you go check it out. Okay, next up we have ourselves a little Hot Chop PTCG homebrew here. We're using the Indeedee, which for Twin Energy does 10 for each card in your hand. The idea is here, we just want to start threatening 2 shots on VMAXs, okay? If we can get between 15 and 20 cards in our hand, we're doing between 150 and 200 damage, and it's not uncommon to get your hand that big with this deck. But you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, if our opponent plays a Marnie, our hand goes from like 15, 20 all the way back down to 4, and that would be dreadful. And you know what it would be? But we play a solid 3 line of the Milotic with that Do Guard ability, which stops the effects of our opponent's supporters done to myself or my hand. So if our opponent plays Marnie, our hand stays at this. Okay, we don't do anything with our hand if our opponent plays Marnie. We've got Milotic out. So we play the Crobat and Golbat. Golbat, when you evolve, lets you draw 2 cards, and Crobat lets you draw 3 cards. And we also play a solid 4/4 of the new Schoolboy Schoolgirl supporter, which Schoolboy, I think if your opponent has odd number of prizes left, you draw 2 + 2. And then the Schoolgirl is the other way around. If they have even number of prizes left, you draw 2 + 2. So this is going to give us with both of them in hand, we can always draw a +4, meaning we can get to that hand kinesis to get that 2-shot a lot faster than we normally would have done, okay? We play Capture Energies, we play Raihands and a couple of Waters as well, in case so we're not so reliant on our Twin Energies. But I think this deck is really fun, and trust me, it hits like a truck when it gets going. Right, next up here we have another Omnipoke special, okay? This is going to be the new Inteleon VMAX Path to the Peak style list, okay? But what this Inteleon is really good for is stalling out, doing a crisp 140 damage, okay? And then it returns energy back to hand. So what it does, for 2 energy, you do 70 damage, and then you can return an energy back to your hand, okay, from it. And then if you do, you can do an extra 70. So that means you're in 140 for 1 energy attachment, because you just use the Rapid Strike energy, of course. And then you put it back into your hand. So that means you are always open for playing Shovels, and that's why we play a solid 4 count of Shovel in here. So essentially we're doing 140 and heal, 140 and heal, 140 and heal. That's the idea, okay? We still play the full host of Inteleons here. We have 2 Shady Dealings and 2 Quick Shootings. And we played the Octillery as well. The Octillery is going to be really good in here for just searching out our Pokemon and actually searching out the Rapid Strike energy. Because what can happen in a list like this is you put the energy back into your hand. Let's say you have another energy in hand and your opponent Marnies, and all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, I have no energy to attack. We played 4 Path to the Peak, so we can't use the ability on the Inteleon. We are now stuck. So that's why there's a lot of moving parts to this deck, but if you get to that Cheryl loop time, it's getting pretty scary for your opponent, let me tell you. And again, OmniPerk have done a big video on this. Go check them out, okay? Okay, next up we have another Inteleon list, but this time we're going to utilize the double shooter ability on it, okay? And what this ability does is you can discard 1 water energy from your hand. If you do, you can put 2 damage counters on 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So the idea is here, in combination with our quick shooting ability from our other Inteleons, we are peppering the bench, okay? Whilst threatening 2 shots with our Inteleon's attack, Gmax Whirlpool, and then we also play the Cheryls in here. So we're trying to have the best, we're trying to have everything with this Inteleon. We're trying to use our quick double shooter ability, I should say, from the VMAX. We're trying to have Cheryl support, and we also get to utilize a cheeky little 1-prize attacker in Basculin, which for 2 energy does 30 plus 10 for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So that means after a Gmax Whirlpool, we can send in the Basculin and essentially clean up with some quick shooting pings as well. I think this list is going to be bonkers. Make sure you check it out because this could be a high tier threat. Right, so next up we have Jolteon VMAX, and I think this is Grant Manley's list. Go check them out on Twitter and on Twitch. But I think Jolteon VMAX, this list in particular, is poised to have a real good go at the meta, okay? Jolteon VMAX for 2 energy does 100 damage to your opponent's active and 100 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that has damage on already, okay? We've already seen how strong of an attack this can be. But it's always had a bit of a bugaboo matchup with the Urshifu decks, like Single Strike and Rapid Strike, respectively. So what this list aims to do, in combination with Dream Ball and Dusknoir, we're going to get the Dusknoir out foregoing all evolution rules. And what this Dusknoir's ability does, it makes all your opponent's special energy only provide 1 colorless. It's going to be really good because Single Strike now is going more Gengar focused, right? And that Gengar list plays like 4 Single Strike energies, 4 hiding energies, and like maybe 2 basics, if that. So that means this Dusknoir just says to that Single Strike deck, hold on, wait a minute, you ain't doing nothing. And against something like a Rapid Strike Inteleon, like if you're playing this list against the Inteleon list that we saw back, we only played 4 Rapid Strike energies, they can no longer attack. So if you get this Dusknoir out, you're doing real good against the meta, let me tell you. But it is a little bit inconsistent because the only way to get Dusknoir into play is to essentially take the Dream Ball from our prizes upon a KO, and then you can get Dusknoir out of the deck. Now, we do play 1 Peonia to make that happen, and with our Inteleons, it shouldn't really be too hard for to make happen. But if you're feeling risky and you feel as if you can manipulate the prizes really well, you have a pretty high skill ceiling deck that can carry you pretty far, I think, in my opinion. Alright, and if you're not really feeling the whole Dusknoir Dream Ball route, here is a Jolteon VMAX deck for you that hasn't got that stuff in. Okay. Next up, we have ourselves a new deck, the Latias Quad Walling deck. What this Latias does, for 1 fire, 1 psychic, 1 colorless, you do Dyna Barrier, which does 70 damage, and then you can't be hit from VMAXs during your opponent's next turn, okay? We all know how many decks are VMAX focused now, okay? This is going to mean that our opponent has to start attacking us with their evolving Vs, and most of the time, the attacks on them are trash. So if we can force our opponent to try and take 6 prizes on these Latias in combination with the new Oricorio, which means our Fusion Strike Pokemon take 20 less damage from attacks, whilst they also have Cape of Toughness on, giving them 170 HP. I reckon we can run our opponent out of their evolving Vs with that, okay? You're probably thinking to yourself, hold on, 1 fire, 1 psychic, 1 colorless, that is an awful attack cost, Bert. How are we getting that done? Well, Latios has the ability Blue Assist, which once during your turn you can use the ability attach 1 psychic energy from your hand to one of your Latias in play. So in combination with Alicia's Sparkle, which lets you pluck fusion energy out of your deck and attach them to your fusion Pokemon, we can actually get to this Dyna Barrier in 1 turn, right? So let's just say we can attach the fire from our hand to our Latias, right? We can use Latios to attach a Psychic, and then we can use Alicia's Sparkle to pluck a Fusion energy out of deck, because they provide any color to a Fusion Pokemon. And now we can get going with Dyna Barrier, okay? So we're just going to try and cheat energies into play as much as possible. We also play Raihands for a similar effect upon KO, letting us get a basic energy from our discard pile and sling it to one of our Pokemon, essentially. We also play a whole host of disruption options because Latias isn't really that tanky, so if we can just try and be taking no damage back at all, that would be handy. So we play 4 Question Hammer and 3 Fan of Waves as well. We also play the Power Tablets near, which could be really important, trying to take that 70 damage and turn it into 2 shots on some of these evolving Vs, because what those Power Tablets do is you do an extra 30 to your opponent's Pokemon for each one you play, your Fusion Strike Pokemon, I should say anyway. So it's going to be a pretty fun disruption deck, and you're going to try and keep announcing Dyna Barrier as many times as possible, and hopefully you can just run your opponent out of their evolving Vs to the point where you are no longer taking damage and you take that big fat dub. Right, so next up we have Leafeon VMAX, a card and a deck which I don't think gathers too much from Fusion Strike, unfortunately, but it's been a pretty decent deck in this meta nonetheless. What this Leafeon VMAX does, for 2 energy you do Grass Knot, for 2 energy you do 60 for each, well, for as many retreat cost your opponent has. So if they have a 3 retreat cost, you do 180 damage. And in combination with Galar Mines, you can tend to make that a 2-shot quite a lot of the time. So we have ourselves the Inteleon engine just to back ourselves up, 4 Galar Mines, Tool Jammer as well to turn off, our opponent's hair balloons, I should say. So it's been a pretty consistent, high placing deck in this meta, and I see no reason why that would change. Alright, next up we have ourselves a little Hot Shot PTCG homebrew, baby. We got ourselves Frosmoth. Now, I don't know why. I'm sure you people at home, sometimes you just see a card and you think, I want to make that card work. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen. For some reason, I want to make Frosmoth work so bad. And when I saw this Frosmoth, I thought, there could be potential for a little Frosmoth action. So, what the new Frosmoth does is for 3 energy, you do 160 damage and you return all energies back into your hand, okay? So that's providing a 2-shot on pretty much all VMAXs. Thumbs up. Anytime you can take 2 shots on 3 prizes whilst only giving up 1 prize, that's pretty fun. And then in combination with the other Frosmoth that lets us attach energies, the idea is we can do 160 damage, okay? Then we promote something with an air balloon, we can attach those energies back to the next one and then carry on, okay? Could be pretty good, but you're probably thinking, these sort of decks where you all evolve off the same basics tend not to work that often because it's just a bit awkward. And you would be right, but we actually have the Zoroark from Evolving Skies, which lets you essentially swap it and all cards attached with a stage 1 from your discard pile. So the idea is here, we don't actually need to have bare Snoms in play to actually get our Frosmoths out. So we have a Mew from Celebration to act as our pivot whenever it's in the active, lets you search the top 6 cards of your deck and put an item in your hand. And then we actually play the one-off Flapple as well, which just for 1 energy, 50 times the amount of Pokemon in play that your opponent has that has an ability. That's a pretty cool 2-shot in attack and potentially gets the 1-shot in some evolving Vs as well. I actually have high hopes for this deck. Fingers crossed it works. Let me know if it works for you. Okay, next up we have ourselves another Hot Chart PTCG homebrew, baby. And again, this is one that I'm really excited for. We have ourselves Galarian Obstagoon with that Merciless Strike attack, which does 60 plus 90 if your opponent has any damage on them already. So we're just shy of a 2-shot there, but we all know the Galarian Zigzagoon has that Headbutt Tantrum attack ability, I should say, that lets you put 1 damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon anyway you like. So we have that to get the extra damage into play, to get that activator, right, for that Merciless Strike. We also play the Inteleon line, so we know that we can use quick shooting Inteleons to get damage into play, and have the Shady Dealings one to make sure we can actually get to our stage 2s fairly often. We also play a one-off of the old Galarian Obstagoon from Sword and Shield, which lets you put 3 damage counters in play when you evolve them. And in some matchups, you'll be able to use the Obstruct attack for 2 energy, does 90 damage, and you can't be hit from basic. So if you use that against Zacian Zam, for example, you have now won the game. Apart from that, we have to play some cool stuff as well, like Raihands, so we can keep our stage 2s coming out nice and easily. Bruno, Old Symmetry, which is another way for us to get damage into play. What Old Symmetry is, in case you don't know, is anytime you attach an energy to a Pokemon that's not Psychic type, they have to take 2 damage counter. So that actually does hurt us, but it also hurts our opponent more. If they're playing V-Dex, that just gets the activator for us already. And then we have to play a Fan of Waves as well. The reason why I play the Fan of Waves is because normally against Mew VMAX, we should be hitting them for weakness, because Mew VMAX is weak to Dark. But if they have their Fusion energy in play, Quick Shooting doesn't work, funnily enough, and neither does Headbutt, Tantrum, or Untamed Shout. So in that scenario, we can try and get the Fan of Waves out with our Drizzy, get rid of the Fusion energy, then we can get damage into play via Headbutt, Tantrum, or Quick Shoot, and then we actually take a one-shot on them with our Merciless Strike. Pretty crazy. Right, so next up we got ourselves Rayquaza VMAX, a deck that hasn't really done as well as we'd like, but it's still pretty fun to play. Rayquaza VMAX for 1 fire, 1 electric, does 20 damage, and then you can discard as many fire energies or lightning energies as you want, and as many as you do, you do an extra 80. So the idea is here with Flappies, we're going to try and discard as many lightnings as we can to try and take some one-shots every now and then, and in combination with Rose, which lets you get 2 basic energies from your discard pile and sling them to one of your VMAX. It's actually not that hard to do, to be fair. So if you practice with this Rayquaza list enough and maybe perfect it even more, you have the potential to be one-shot in pretty much anything in format. It's pretty scary. You also have the Azure Pulse ability to fall back on from Rayquaza VMAX, which lets you discard your hand and draw 3 cards, letting you get a ton of energy in the discard to hopefully just Flaffy back into play. We also play one of Boltund here with that Electrify attack, which is pretty good, letting you get 2 electrics from your deck and slinging them to your Rayquaza. And that Bolt Storm attack with just 10 plus 30 free floating energy you have in play. Now, I'm not sure if Rayquaza or Boltund Vmax is going to be the best Fluffy deck moving forward, but hey, try them both and let me know how you get on. Right, next up we have our new archetype, and that is going to be the Everybody Rollout archetype. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, so listen up. So, Everybody Rollout, okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attackers with that attack, okay? Now, the Sandshrew, Jigglypuff, Togedemaru, and Marill all attack for a twin energy, okay? And the attack does 20 for each one of your Pokemon that have the Everybody Rollout attack, okay? So, the idea is here, because we play Fighting, Psychic, Metal, and Water, we can hit a ton of stuff for weakness. The idea is here is that we just fill our bench of Everybody Rollout Pokemon, use the Everybody Rollout attack, and try and take some big weakness KOs, okay? That on its own could be okay, but we actually have another little buff to this where the Blissey, which has the attack, but it attacks for 3 energy, unfortunately, but it has an ability, the Rounded Skill ability, and it means all your Pokemon that have the Everybody Rollout ability, attack I should say, sorry, are immune to VMAX damage. That's pretty cool. So then you think, alright, so we can't be hit by VMAXs, and we can try and hit as many stuff for weakness as possible. That sounds pretty good, and in theory it is, but I think the problem with this deck, which is going to hold it back, is that they all have 60 HP, so that means something like Inteleons are just going to run amok on you, right? So I've got a little bit of kinks to work out there, but we do pay like 4k of toughness to help alleviate that. But the idea is just, yeah, just get that Blissey out as soon as possible, flood the board, Everybody Roll Out, and just go to work. It could be quite fun. Right, so here we go. We've got ourselves some Rapid Strike Urshifu list here. We know how versatile Rapid Strike Urshifu is already. So this deck is utilising Moltres to where we can try and use that Gmax Rapid Flow as often as possible, whilst also providing us a 2-prize attacker that attacks for a different weakness as well. Gmax Rapid Flow, in case you don't know, is for 2 fighters, 1 curlers, and you discard all your energy, but then you can do 120 snipe in 2 places. You can hit the active as well. If you hit the active weakness, you can do that. But in combination with Passimium, you actually do 150 to the bench, okay? Because Passimium makes our Rapid Strike Pokemon do an extra 30 to benched V. So we're going to play a full host of Inteleons, you know, quick shooting and chain dealing, so we can get trainers and put damage into play respectively. And then we play energy switches as well, so where we can get those dark energies from our Moltres, so use the Dark Lane Wings ability, which, you know, lets you get a dark energy from the discard pile attached to the Moltres, to where we can, in theory, get the dark energy from the discard pile to the Moltres and then energy switch it off. So the idea is we can do a rapid flow, 2-shot some things, then we just attach a Rapid Strike energy, use Dark Flame Rings, energy switch to the Urshifu, and then Rapid Flow again. That's pretty fun. And then it also has the Gale Thrust attack, also has this as well, which for 1 energy does 150 damage if it moves into the active spot this turn. So a whole lot of things like Rapid Strike Urshifu, and this is Rapid Strike Urshifu Moltres. So here we have another Rapid Strike Urshifu list. This one actually plays Telescopic Sight, so that means we can actually start doing 180 to our opponent's benched V Pokemon, meaning we can actually one-shot Crobats on the bench, which is pretty crazy, and 2-shot VMAXs whilst they're on the bench as well. That's pretty nuts. If you sort of like that way of playing Urshifu, then we've got this list, and I think it might be my favourite, maybe. Right, next up we've got ourselves a fun little mid-tier archetype here, and that is Weezing Sableye. The idea is here, with our Galarian Weezings, we're going to slow our opponents down. Because what it does, if Galarian Weezing's in the active, it turns off all abilities in play. Okay, well, on your opponent's side, I should say. So that means your opponent no longer has Inteleons or Drizzles or Crobats or even Genesect. They don't have any of that. Okay, and then the idea is there, you can start putting damage into play with its severe poison attack, which for 1 energy poisons your opponent, but they take 4 damage counters on Pokemon Checkup instead of 1. Or you can get damage into play with Quick Shooting, which lets you put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, okay? So we're going to get damage into play via those 2 methods, and then we're going to come in swinging with our Sableye V and take some big clean-up KOs, because Sableye V for 2 energy does 10 plus 60 for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. If they have 5 to 6 damage counters on, you are ejecting everything. And because Weezing just slows the game down so much, it's not that crazy to do. It's a pretty fun archetype. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if this Sableye deck does better, or any Crabominable based builds. This, you could argue, is more disruptive at slowing the game down with Weezings, but then the Crabominable can get to that one shot faster. So, if you like these sort of attacks, you have 2 decks in format. Look at you. So next up we have Salazzle, a stage 1 Pokemon that has the potential of doing 300 damage for 1 attachment. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Salazzle has the attack Divisive Roasting, which does 90 for each special condition on your opponent's Pokemon. Okay, now, yeah, we're going to utilize a Caterpie, a Metapod from Rebel Clash, I believe, and then we're going to use the Butterfree. When you evolve them, leaves your opponent's active burned, poisoned, and confused. Now, so that adds up to 270 damage, okay, already, if you have all 3 of those special conditions, and they, and then you use Divisive Roasting. But if they flip with the burn and take 20 damage, that's the extra damage for you. And then if they actually choose, and then they have to take the 10 from poison. And then if they try to attack through confusion and flip tails, you're doing so much damage to where you could be potentially one-shotting some weaker VMAXs. That's pretty crazy. So the idea is there we can just put down all the Butterfrees, scoop up net, and then get them all ready for our next turn, okay? We're playing some capture energies so we can set up. We have twin energies for our Salazzle so we can actually attack with 1 attachment. And we actually play some Hands as well, so upon KO, letting us keep ticking over and attaching fire energies from the discard as well, keeping us nice and efficient. One thing I love about this deck is that Salazzle is actually 90 HP, so you can search it with level ball. Turtle City Gym keeps us ticking over. This deck actually has the potential to take some pretty crazy KOs. I think it actually could be pretty decent, not gonna lie to you. Right, next we have Shadow Rider Calyrex Turbo, a deck that I actually own in real life. And the idea is here, with Zacian V, which is going to let us end our turn and attach a Psychic Energy to one of our Pokemon. And then with 4 Galarian Articunos with that cruel charge ability where you bench it, you can attach 2 Psychics from your hand when you bench it to itself. We can make that Max Geist attack from our Shadow Rider Calyrex do a ton of damage. What that Max Geist does is 10 plus 30 for each Psychic Energy you have in play. So if you get to 10 Psychic Energies in play, you're now doing 300. And then with Underworld Door, letting you attach 1 Psychic from your hand to one of your bench Psychic Pokemon. And then it lets you draw 2 cards as well. So everything in this deck is just focused to getting Psychic Energies into play to where Max Geist is doing crazy damage, okay? If you like the sound of that, then that's the deck for you. We also now have a more traditional Shadow Rider list, where we're playing our Creamy VMAX. We're going to try and utilize a combination of Max Geist and Gmax Whisk to take our KOs, okay? And what the Alcremie does for Gmax Whisk, for 2 energy, you do 60 times the amount of energy you discard from all your Pokemon, okay? So here you can discard, you know, as many as you want to try and get on 1 shot or threaten 2 shots as well. And the Adornment's actually pretty useful as well. For 1 colorless, letting you search your deck for a Psychic Energy card, and then you can attach them to any number of your Pokemon that you want. So pretty fun. Underworld Door provides the energy for Gmax Whisk to discard and then take some big 1 shots and 2 shots. Pretty cool. Alright, next up we have Single Strike Gengar, okay, the new face of Single Strike. And what Gengar VMAX does, it has 2 attacks, okay. The first one is Panic Fear. For 2 Dark Energy, you do 60 for each V Pokemon your opponent has in play. This is bonkers. Single Strike has been crying for a 2 energy attack for the longest of times, and this is actually a pretty good one, threatening 2 shots in the early game, and then after a lot of, you know, attacks have been done, providing some cleanup KOs for 2 energy as well. We then also have Gmax Swallow. For 3 Dark Energy, you do 250 damage, and this Pokemon can't attack next turn. So this is a bit like Gmax Wombelow in the sense that it's going to be your big attack that, in combination with Single Strike Energy, you're going to try and threaten some 1-shots with. And if you want, you can actually play Leon to help satisfy some 1-shots there as well. So now we're not actually playing Urshifu in this list at all. We're just going to use this and then Umbreon VMAX when you evolve them, letting you gust your opponent's bench Pokemon so you can hit exactly what you want when you want. And you can actually use the Max Darkness attack on Umbreon as well if you wanna try and hit for a different weakness. I mean, hit with an attacker that has a different weakness to Gengar, I should say. Which does 3 for 160. That's a flat 2-shot in everything in format. Pretty cool. Worth noting, the Umbreon V is actually pretty decent as well. Mean Look for 1 energy does 30 damage and they can't retreat next turn. But with Single Strike Energy, it actually does 50, which can be really a little early game turn 1 poke. And then Moonlight Blade does 80 plus 80 if it has any damage counters on already. Which it will, because we all know Houndoom is how we get our Single Strike energies into play. That Single Strike Raw attack, then you get a Single Strike energy from your deck, attach it where you want, and wherever it goes, that Pokemon takes 2 damage counters. But we all know that the Single Strike energies are really good because it makes our Single Strike Pokemon do an extra 20. So yeah, we're going to try and get as many Single Strike energies in play as possible, to where we're going to try and take some consistent 2-shots and hopefully some 1-shots as well. Gengar is pretty nuts. However, I still think the best way to play Single Strike is with a Gengar focus, don't get me wrong. But I think having 1 Urshifu V is pretty cool as well. Now, this deck is sort of a hybrid, so we play all the Gengar Umbreon stuff here, but we also play a one-off Single Strike Urshifu V. Reason being, we want to be able to hit for fighting weakness when we want to, okay? If you want, you could actually try and fit Single Strike Urshifu VMAX in here as well, just to really take some big late game 1-shots. That's something that Gengar struggles to do. You have to have, like, what, all 4 Single Strike energies in play, I believe, to start taking 1-shots on 3 30 HP VMAX. It's just not possible, and a Single Strike Urshifu VMAX would let you do that. But here we're just going to try and use the Single Strike Urshifu V with that Impact Blow attack for 2 fightings, 1 colorless, and hits him for 180. If you hit him for weakness, you're going to be 1-shotting anything with that attack, and we're going to be using the Single Strike energies to provide those fighting energy costs. Let me know what you think. Single Strike is definitely here to stay. Do you think Gengar can do it on his own, or do you need some Urshifu support as well? Okay, here we have a super interesting list, a Fusion Strike list, but we're going to be utilizing Genesect as our main attacker here. Genesect for 2 metal, 1 colorless, you do 210 damage, okay? So with that Fusion drawing ability, letting us draw up to as many Fusion Pokemon we have in play, we're going to try and utilize this with a 4/4 line of Toxtricity. And I mentioned this before, but what this Toxtricity does, if you only have Fusion Pokemon in play, your opponent's VMAXs lose 30 HP. So in theory, if you have 3 of these in play, your opponent's VMAXs lose 90 HP. And now all of a sudden, the Genesect with a power tablet is taking one shot. And I don't think that's a terribly outrageous scenario to put yourself in. We have Metal Sources to get our energies into play. We also have Alicia's Sparkle, so we can pluck out those fusion energies and attach them to our Genesect. Anytime you have 4 Genesect, you're going to be seeing a whole ton of cards to where I think this is going to be pretty cool. This is one of the first decks as well that can utilize the Chili, Siren, and Crest engine, which lets you get 3 fusion Pokemon from your deck and put them in your hand, meaning we can get these toxicities into play super fast. And use Stormy Mountains as well to get the Toxels into play. This deck could be low-key cracked, not going to lie to you, and no one's really talking about it. Next up, we have the Suicune Ludicolo deck. This is a pretty high-tier deck, and I don't think it gains or loses anything in the Fusion Strike meta. We're going to be using Suicune with that Blizzard Rondo, which is 20 for each Pokemon in play. And then we're going to try and utilize the Ludicolo with that Enthusiastic Dance attack ability. When you evolve and put him into play, your Pokemon do an extra 100. So the idea is here, if we play our cards right with bench Pokemon and our quick shooting Inteleons, we can actually take a one-shot on a VMAX and then, you know, just double through the rest of the game and two-shot another one. This deck is pretty strong. Anytime 2 prizes can threaten a 3 prize with an Oko, you have to take the deck seriously. Suicune's here to stay. Right, next up we have ourselves Victini VMAX RNG, baby. Flipping all kinds of coins so we can win. I actually caught that one as well. I think I saw this on Twitter from Libe. I don't know, I might have pronounced your name wrong there. I apologize. But this is going to be utilizing Victini VMAX with a whole ton of power spike items. So Victini VMAX for 2 energy. If you're hitting into a V, does 220 damage. That's really strong. If you're going first with Victini and you attach energy, you put a lot of pressure on your opponent, because if they only get one of their evolving Vs down, you can just evolve a second energy, evolve into a VMAX, boss or capture it, and your opponent is now stuck in uh-oh city, okay? So, we get to play some unique cards in this list though. Let's talk about the Carbu, which is pretty fun, which is shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4 cards. That's not pretty good. But if you only have 1 Pokemon in play, you can actually draw till you have 8 cards in hand. So the idea is there, you can use Carbu in this deck quite well, because you actually play 4 Pokemon catchers, which are going to let you try and boss and Carbu in the same turn. The catcher, in case you don't know, lets you swap your opponent's active on a coin flip. We also play 4 Crushing Hammers to be an irritant, 4 Fan of Wave to be an irritant, and 4 Path to the Peaks to be an irritant. That can swing some sort of matches against stuff like Mew VMAX. I can see all that combination of disruption stuff doing you really well, and I think this Victini is always a good pick, not gonna lie to you. Right, and then last up we have ourselves Zacian Zam again. This deck doesn't change much, but I thought let's try some Crabominable in there, because I think Zacian Zam can sometimes be stuck with dud hands, and Crabominable might help us out. What a Crabominable card does, in case you don't know, it's an item card. When you play it, you have to discard a card from your hand, but if you do, flip a coin. If heads, search your deck for any card and put it in your hand. That could be the extra little consistency boost Zacian Zam needs. Zacian, we all know what Zacian does by now. It's a really good attacker for 3 energy, does 230 damage. For 3 energy, I should say, on a 2 prizer. Sling a Cape of Toughness on there and a Crystal Cave. This is a tanky Pokemon that now has 270 HP and can heal 30. So the idea is now we're going to be an irritant with our Zacian, try and take some prizes, and then late game we can just throw up some Zamazentas which are immune to VMAX attacks and just try and win the game that way. Apart from that, we're just playing a whole ton of consistency stuff: 4 research, 4 money, 3 boss, 2 right hand, and metal sources and Pokegear just to keep us ticking. Woo! But there we go, that's all 40 of the decks. My mouth is super dry, so I'm going to go get myself a drink. Let me know what decks you're excited to try, which ones you're looking to build, which ones you're going to try and build, and which ones you already have built, and let me know how they work out for you, okay? But if you liked the video, hit like the video, come on, help us out. It's a big list drop here, so all support is greatly appreciated. And if you want to see some of these decks in action, check out this Fusion Strike playlist here, okay? Or if you have some comedic videos, check out this one here. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.